All right. Well, welcome to Teacher Talk, brought to you by National Life Group's LifeChanger of the Year. This is our last Teacher Talk for February before we move on to March. And we are so excited about this one because we are partnering with Shape America to talk about the importance of health and physical education in the classroom. And, we've got a great lineup of panelists and an awesome moderator. So I'm really excited to turn it over to Michelle in just a moment. But if you're not familiar with Shape America is an organization that is dedicated to excellence in the classroom and excellence with physical education in schools. And so today's topic, we are actually going to talk about how to incorporate physical education into the classroom. Because when we think about physical education, I think so many people just think about physical health and don't take into account all of the benefits that it has on students' mental health and how that contributes to their overall academic success as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this Teacher Talk panel over to you, Michelle, and you can introduce yourself, Shape America, and our awesome panelist lineup. Thank you.
Thank you, Mallory. So hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Carter. I am the Director of Educational Content and Programs at Shape America, and Shape America stands for the Society of Health and Physical Educators. So Shape America serves as the voice of over 200,000 plus health and physical education professionals across the United States. So who knew that there were that many, but there's that many, and we're here to represent them and advocate for health and physical education across the United States. I'm joined today with my colleague, Sean, who will also serve as one of our panelists. And Sean, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. My name is Sean Nevels. I came on to Shape America 2020 as a CDC COVID-19 project director. So interesting to think of Shape being in the realm of COVID, but part of my job is to address some of the things we'll talk about today when it comes to social emotional learning and the well-being of students during this pandemic.
That's great, Sean. So we're also joined by another panelist, and we should be having one more teacher join us, but I'm going to go ahead and let our other panelist, Michelle, introduce herself.
I'm Michelle Huff. I'm from New Jersey, and I teach at Metuchen High School, health and physical education. I've also taught at the middle school level at Maxton Middle School in Plainfield, New Jersey, and I'm our New Jersey State Coordinator for Health Moves Minds. I just love health and physical education, and I'm a huge advocate for it and just for the whole child. So I'm really blessed that I'm here right now, and I'm excited for this panel to start going. So thank you for having me.
Kyle, will you introduce yourself? Thank you for joining us, because I know you're taking a break from teaching to do.
Yeah, sorry, I guess there's a big discipline problem in the office, so they were struggling to get out to my class. So I am Kyle Bragg. I am in Scottsdale, Arizona. Gorgeous day out here, 75 degrees, beautiful. Elementary physical education, and I'm the advocacy chair for our state association, and excited to help in any way I can.
We're going to discuss the value of physical education. Sometimes we don't really recognize the value that physical education plays within the school environment. And we're going to talk about physical activity and how physical activity can help students regulate their emotions, they develop coping skills, and ultimately stay focused in the classroom. Before we get into discussion, I do want us to talk a little bit about physical education and physical activity. What is the difference? And then what does 21st century PE look like? And I'm going to hand that question over to Sean.
Yeah, for sure. So the first question is what is the difference between physical education and physical activity, right? So let's start with PE. Physical education is a skills-based academic discipline. Okay, did everybody hear that? It's a skills-based academic discipline, just like mathematics, just like social studies, just like reading. Okay, it's an academic discipline. It supports the overall learning just like every other subject area. And then also I'll give you other three big takeaways when you think about the difference between PE versus physical activity. And that's one is guided by national standards. Okay, 5 national standards for physical education, 8 for health education. Okay, a lot of content in there to develop the overall child. 2, Educators create their curriculum based on these standards, okay? They're trying to meet these standards. Why? Because we want to achieve positive student outcomes, all right? So you got your standards, you got curriculum, and then 3, it is taught by certified teachers, just like Michelle Huff in the room, just like Kyle Bragg, okay? We have certified teachers that teach this curriculum and try to meet the student outcomes, okay? So that's the big thing when it comes to physical education. And how is it different from physical activity? Well, physical activity just reinforces all those things that students learn in physical education through play, through participation in sports, youth sports, community sports, interscholastic sports. You can do it through brain breaks in the classroom, in your regular classroom, your math class, mindfulness activities, and etc. Okay, and then part 2 to your question, Michelle, about what does that look like in the 21st century? At this point of the pandemic, we're talking about vaccines. So, there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? Well, the CDC has always recommended that school-aged children get 60 minutes a day of physical activity, right? That includes physical education. Why? Because of that brain-body connection, okay? We know that active students have better attendance, better grades, and better behavior, okay? Patterns of success right there. We know that the more they're active, the better they're all going to be at school. And school success equals success in life. Healthier individuals, healthier communities. So we need to start looking at physical education as public health, supporting entire communities.
Wow, I love that. And before I want to add to that, before we do, I'm going to let Amanda, she's another panelist in Connecticut. She can introduce herself as well.
Hello. I got stuck. I don't know, but it's really good to be here. And yeah, I teach K-5 PE in Middletown, Connecticut. I have 2 schools, and they're both Title I schools, and I definitely agree with everything that Sean just said about how important it is for students to be physically active, because it just helps them in every way.
That's perfect. So just to quickly, for those just joining us, we asked Sean, what's the difference between physical education and physical activity? In a nutshell, physical education is a standards-based subject taught in school. It has objectives, it has curricular goals, just like math, reading, and all the other subjects. Our organization, Shape America, leads those efforts, and we kind of at a national level direct what best practices are within the field. We have national standards around physical education and health education as well. And so physical activity is just movement, being physically active. It doesn't necessarily have curricular goals. They're not necessarily standards-based. It's just an opportunity to take the skills that you learn in PE and apply them in different areas of your different areas. It could be before school, after school, during the school day, at home. So the 2 work very well together, but we just wanted to lay that foundation between PE versus PA. You cannot replace physical education with physical activity. Physical activity complements what is happening in PE. So with that being said, I love the fact that Kyle and Amanda are in their you can see where they are, right? And then Michelle is clearly at home, which speaks to the pandemic, right? We're all teaching, and I say all because I'm a former health and PE teacher, so it speaks to, I still feel very connected, but it speaks to what we're looking at as educators, right? Some are hybrid, some are fully virtual, some are, still in person 100%. So I'm going to ask each teacher, and I'm going to start with Kyle. What does PE look like in a pandemic? Can you describe your current model of instruction? Are you fully virtual, hybrid, and what's the impact that that's had on your teaching in COVID-19 as a result of COVID-19?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. We are fully back in person. We were online for about 7 weeks, and we've been in person for about, I would say, almost a couple months now. And it's obviously affected it in the fact that we are very limited with our equipment. We're having to keep our space, obviously. We can't share any equipment, of course. So there's a lot of activities that we can't quite do, but we're making the most of it. My goal, a lot of people have been talking about waiting to get back to normal. And I think we need to take a different approach and understand that we're not at normal right now, And we need to provide students some resources and let them recognize that there are ways to stay active and there are ways to support them right now, rather than just hoping that this ends soon. So there are things that we can do to connect them to community, equitable things like, for example, we have lots of parks and we have a hiking trail next to us, our school. So we're trying to have students understand there's ways to stay active, there's ways to still engage in that physical activity, since we can't quite do everything we normally do. So we're trying to take a proactive approach and making sure students feel they have ways to continue to be active despite maybe not having the same activities as we normally do at this time.
All right, so Michelle, the same question to you. What's your current model of instruction, and then what impact has it had on you and teaching?
So I'm hybrid in our district. So I have students that are in person. Some are full-time, some come every other week. And I also have students that are fully virtual. So I have a mix, and it has been very impactful, since COVID, because you see that all of our students are going through different experiences in, our state and throughout the country. So health and PE has really been a source and kind of bridge the gap and to connect all the subject areas because of, social emotional learning and the things that we teach our students. So I guess that I would have to say that, it's impacted my students because now we're trying to find different ways to reach them and make sure every student's needs are met. So that's why I would agree with Kyle that we have to keep moving forward and find ways. It's not going to go backwards. We got to keep moving forwards.
Great. And Amanda, I'd love to hear about your teaching, your model of instruction and how it's impacted you.
Well, like Michelle, we're in the hybrid model, although it sounds like our hybrid model is a little bit different. We have cohort A is Monday, Thursday. Cohort B is Tuesday, Friday. Wednesdays are fully remote. And then there's a cohort C that is fully remote. Now that's going to be changing in a few weeks. March 15th, we're back in full 4 days a week with cohorts A and B. And then there's still going to be students whose families have chosen to keep them virtual. So it's really challenging because I don't have my kids, like I will see kids, best case scenario, in person every other week. So the kids that I do see. Now there are some grade levels that have 3 classes, and it's like best case scenario, once every 3 weeks we're in person. I advocated for my admin to not Zoom. I know that Zoom works well. People are doing some fantastic activities Zooming. For us, I'm outdoors a lot, so that's just super challenging. And then also, because I'm K-5, there are kids like in a daycare setting, or they have different challenges with their environment, and so they may not be able to log on. And then for the in-person kids, I really need to try to the best that we can, given our safety protocols, to engage them in appropriate social activities and so I think what I've been trying to do is, rather than say, well, how am I going to do what I've always done given these restrictions, I'm trying to look at reimagining, like, because there are definitely some challenges for sure, but there's also some benefits to the current situation. Like, I have more access to parents now than I've ever had. Like, they have to be in communication because they're in charge at home, or somebody's in charge at home. So I've really been trying to make the at-home piece about physical activity in your life. And I've been able to build some, we did a unit on goal setting at the beginning of the year. using our mileage club, and we are currently working on strategies for managing stress. And so I'm able to, using the digital platforms, incorporate a lot more of that content knowledge.
Perfect, which is a good segue into what my next question is, but it's interesting to hear all three very different parts of the country, very different teaching scenarios. And so I do want to acknowledge that, like, all teachers have it's just difficult right now. And so one of the other things, and everyone's stressed, right? Teachers are stressed, parents are stressed, kids are stressed. And so this kind of leads me to this next question. Social emotional learning was something that pre-pandemic everyone was looking at, and it's been there, and definitely within health and PE, but now it's been on, like, I feel like a hyper focus. Like, we're really, social emotional learning we need to address that, right? So how can health and physical education be used to promote social and emotional learning for students? And this is opened up to all of our panelists. So whoever wants to answer first.
Yes, I agree. I think Shape America did a great job of putting out the reentry guidelines, which really emphasizes social emotional learning, regardless of whether they're virtual or in person. And it gives you some ideas on how to accomplish those. And also for, trauma sensitive environments, and making sure we are reaching those students, and how to include, and how to, just making sure everyone feels that has equitable opportunities, right? So I love those guidelines. Of course, Health Moves Minds has been important now more than ever. Emoji check-ins are huge, whether you're in person or online. I know it means the world to my students when they know that I'm there asking how their day is going, more than pretty much any other thing. The Random Acts of Kindness week last week, we're just continuing to push that forward, talking about how we can do those random acts that no one's expecting, but it means so much to both people, right? So if I do something nice to Michelle and she didn't expect it, I feel good, I fill my bucket, and I fill her bucket too. So the filling buckets, we read that book last week, and we're continuing to remind our students about that. The Shape American PE SEL crosswalk is huge to connect the social emotional learning competencies to our standards, which are directly correlated, right? So standards 4 and 5, that social interaction and the working with others, that's a part of our standards. We better be doing it anyways, but especially, making sure we highlight those right now. The social interaction has been huge. I know it's obviously tougher on Zoom, but every day we talk about how our students talk about how grateful we are to be in person and have the interaction, because so many people are not able to do that. So I kind of say it like, don't wait for the students' check engine light to come on. You want to nurture them from day one, and so they can know exactly what they need to do and how to reach out if they need to. So taking that proactive approach, and then since they're reaching out or they're asking for help, that's that self-management, self-awareness piece that goes along with those competencies. So we're really trying to highlight that now more than ever, but I think that's what's really important right now. And, I say we don't necessarily care about the fitness concept if they don't even know how they're getting food, or if they don't even have a place to go at night. So yes, fitness components are important, but maybe take a back seat until those other things are checked off first.
I can jump in if that's okay. And I love that analogy, Kyle. I hadn't heard that before about the check engine light coming on. That's really powerful. And, I got to say, like, we think about physical fitness and, how important that is, but it's one piece of overall wellness. And if your mental health isn't where it needs to be, if you're struggling, everything's going to be harder. So, all those pillars of health, the, exercise and nutrition and stress and sleep, like that all gets disrupted when somebody's going through trauma, which everybody to one degree or another is right now. So I feel like kids need to know why exercising is important, and physical fitness is kind of like the measure of how well we're taking care of ourselves. But physical activity doesn't just make you stronger and make your heart more efficient and, increase your flexibility and all that. helps with stress management and mental health. And I think that those, that's an immediate connection that kids can make, even at the elementary level, where when we talk about like cardiovascular health, obviously that's very important. And, you know, it directly correlates with like life expectancy and all of that. But that's kind of abstract and in the future for kids, where kids can definitely connect with, you know, I exercised and I felt good. And I think making that explicit for them is really helpful, because, you know, the more you exercise, the better you feel. And so then you exercise more and you feel better, and it just builds. And, you know, I've got some kids who are really struggling with, like, I've got some kids on safety plans right now for suicidal ideation. It's hard when you're like in a really difficult place like that to, you just don't feel like getting up and moving, you know? And so it's a push. But once you take a little step, then you can take a bigger step and a bigger step. And so, you know, talking about exercise and physical activity as a way to help manage our stress is just so relevant right now. And, you know, I've been taking my kids sledding because we've got some snow, although it's melting because it's been warm today. So the last bunch of weeks we've been able to go sledding, and, you know, I had the 5th grade class out, and these are some kids who are struggling, and they were just joyful, you know, and it was powerful. And like I pointed out to them, you know, being outdoors in the fresh air, the sunshine, and moving feels good, and we feel better when we can do that. And I invited their classroom teacher to, I told her when my lunch was, and I was like, you know, if you all want to come down at lunchtime and go again, have at it. And they did. So it's, you know, I just think that that's really the immediate benefit to what we do. And, you know, there should be more of us and more time. And, you know, this is what the kids really need.
I like that you said, Amanda, how you would give your lunchtime to have the students come back and engage in the activity. Because when I think of SEL and why it's so important, I think that of relationships first. Like, you have to build a connection with your students first and foremost, because content can come second. Like, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So then once you have that relationship and that rapport with them, then whatever you're teaching, they're going to buy in because they know that you love them. So that to me comes first, and why SEL is so important. And that's why checking in, like the emoji charts, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What is going on in your life? Is there a way that I could help you? But not just talking the talk and saying, oh, you know, I'm here if you need something, but actually actions. Like, even I had a student today that I'm teaching high school. So I have an 18-year-old, and she was struggling because somebody had hacked her bank account. So guess what? I helped her call Chase because it was going into the negative. Like, did I have to do that on my time? No, but of course I'm going to help her because she didn't know what to do. So just providing that time and showing your students with action that you love them, you care for them in any classroom is so very important. Now it's kind of embedded in health and PE, and we've been doing it, but now this is something that everybody is looking at in every subject area. And that's why I said before, it bridges the gap. Health and PE can bridge the gap for every subject area.
I mean, you all are amazing, because this also leads into my next question that I have for you, because so, you know, we believe that social and emotional learning naturally aligns with what we do as health and physical educators. There's, as Kyle touched on, working together, the benefits of physical activity, goal setting, like Amanda talked about, like all these things are naturally built into the national standards and in our national health education standards and PE standards. So How do you envision teachers of other subjects? So when you're working with other teachers in your school, how can maybe a PE teacher or a health and PE teacher support SEL, or how can all the teachers work together to support SEL?
And that's where I can jump in to get it started. And I always pledge my allegiance in these spaces, and I truly believe, and we have witnesses here and experts here, that health and physical education teachers are the embodiment of social and emotional learning, right? Yeah, we get some hand claps and some snaps for that. But when it comes to the other subject, it's a climate. Social emotional learning starts with the climate. From the top down. We need, we want to make sure that when those students come into the building, before they even get into our classrooms, our physical education classrooms, they feel safe and they feel supported. So it takes a climate of well-being before they even step into the classroom. So you want to make sure that your schools or your districts have wellness policies that address the educators' well-being as well as the students and families, and that it's a collaborative effort within the community, once again, before the student even walks into the classroom building. Then when they get there, you want those teachers of other subjects to do small things to reinforce physical activity and social and emotional well-being, like brain breaks every couple minutes or mindful activities to kind of give them that break. So just ways to get that physical activity, that mindfulness to address the social and emotional learning and well-being of students.
I'll jump in real quick and just add that how you said it's a climate and culture. It really is. And what I love about my school district this year, they have created a coping skills team. So of course I wanted to be on it. And I brought in Health Moves Minds and all the skills there, because this coping skills team is now going to be leading all of our elementary schools, our middle schools, and our high school teachers in every subject area to teach them how to do a mindful minute so that they could utilize it in their classes, how to do these brain boosts, and how to do exercises that cross the midline so that you can get new interactions between the left and right hemisphere of your brain. And we've seen studies, it increases academics, it helps with reading and writing. So movement and building relationships, and then sometimes, we need some better breathing. So I love that they've created this. And Michelle, we were even talking about this last week, that I would love for every district to do this, because some teachers, if it's coming from the top, like Sean said, then there's no fear of, oh, am I gonna get evaluated and they come in and I'm doing some type of movement in math test? Am I gonna get, lower scores? Or I don't know how to do it. Well, guess what? Now we have a team that's gonna educate you how to do it. And you have your admin, your superintendent, and all the admin on board that they want you to be doing these things because it's gonna benefit the kids. So I love that push, and it's a praiseworthy thing rather than an like this is something that's going to help our students. So I just had to jump in and say that, because I would love all districts to do something like that. And Amanda, we actually talked about this too, that your school is doing something different as well, but similar.
We've talked about Health Moves Minds, and we have to be mindful that some people don't know what that is. So Amanda, do you want to describe what Health Moves Minds is in your own words?
I have been advocating for folks at Cayford in Connecticut and anywhere and I know we're overwhelmed, like our plates are full. And like I was saying with the kids, it's hard to take that first step. Like it really is. And so I totally feel that with people, like we're doing this and it's hard, and people just don't have anything to give. And so the thought of trying something new, if you don't know what Health Moves Minds is, and even just taking that energy to go onto the website and look, and people are like, no, I can't. And I would say, if you're thinking that, I completely get why we feel that way. But if you can muster up what it takes to go on the website and sign up. So like what it is, okay, is it is a service learning curriculum that is social emotional learning based. There are 4 complete lessons, very comprehensive, very well done, that teach specific skills. So in Connecticut, our evaluation platform, how we're being evaluated as teachers, we're encouraged to do a social emotional learning student learning outcome this year, which is different. Usually it's an academic social SLO. This year we're being encouraged to do a social emotional learning one. And this fits perfectly because there are measurable objectives here. So in less complicated times, you have the opportunity to do, you could do a culminating event of whatever works for you. You can raise money for your school and you will get 50% of whatever you raise back in a Go for gift card, which is a wonderful way to support your program. You also can partner with a local charity. So, and that's the charity of your choice, which is great. I've done it both ways because I was a pilot school. We partnered with the Connecticut Down Syndrome Association because we had some students with Down syndrome. So we kind of did it in honor of them. They were moving on to 6th grade in the fall. And then last year, well, it was the middle of the pandemic when we got about halfway there and then we closed, but we just stuck with support our school. And, you know, 2 Title I schools, we're not raising a ton of money, but I get 50% of whatever is raised. Now this year, I'm going to be starting it in March. And even though it's a pandemic and I'm going to do the soft sell, like oh, by the way, you could, you know, and I'm doing a teacher dress down day, sweats, you know, for Health Moves Minds. We're partnering with our local food pantry, and we're also doing a can drive with it. So it's just the idea of like giving back.
Right.
I'm very low keying it, and that's I think that people will be like, well, we can't ask people for money right now. Don't let that scare you, because it could be as simple as, hey, my colleagues, jeans day, sweats day, you know, get your admin on board. The gold right now is those 4 lessons. If you're not real familiar with social emotional learning, it's new learning for you. You can do this.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that. So it's K-12. It's a K-12 service learning program. And the key, so like Amanda said, it's social emotional learning based. In the elementary level, the topics that are introduced are kindness, mindfulness, kindness and mindfulness. So really that serves as the foundation. They're introduced to skills that are taught in PE class that can be used anywhere within the building. One of the things Michelle touched on was a skill like a mindful minute, and it really is teaching kids that just take a minute, and it's a coping skill when you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or any big feeling. And there's a variety of skills. We're also teaching teamwork and other things, and very SEL based, and they are PE lessons, 4 at the K2 level and 4 at the grades 3 through 5 level. And to Amanda's point, if you've never done this before, there's example script to help you with what are the key concepts that you should be making with your student. At the middle school level, there's another there's actually 8 lessons. There's 4 in PE and 4 in health. Again, we're continuing on with being kind, being mindful, and then we're bringing this theme of empowerment. We're empowering students in PE around equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then in the health side of things, we're empowering about analyzing influences, really looking at what factors influence my healthy decision making and why might I go against those decisions. So all that is continuing on. At the high school level, we do it a little bit different, and we have what we call mini lessons. They're full comprehensive lessons. They're just focused on one activity within that lesson versus the other lessons where they have multiple activities that you do, and they're shorter, and you can hopefully, in hopes that a high school teacher could fit them in however they see fit. So again, bringing in mindfulness, bringing in the empowerment piece. And then the new skill that's introduced at grades 9 through 12 is around advocacy. How do I advocate for myself? How do I advocate for others? So if I'm not feeling well, so that starts early on in elementary school, like Kyle touched on, I'm identifying my emotions. I'm upset, or I've been upset for a while and things are bothering me and it doesn't feel like it's getting better. How can I advocate for myself? Or if you see a friend, how can I advocate? And then that skill can be translated into other areas, right? It's not all about our emotional or mental health. It can be advocating for, I'm seeing something that I don't think is right. How can I advocate for that or advocate for somebody else? So those are the skills through the program. It has an opportunity for fundraising if you want to raise funds for school-wide wellness, but all of the materials are free, healthmovesminds.org. So it's a great way to start with SEL, and even a lot of it connects to how you would create trauma-sensitive learning environments too. And they connect, and it's all free there to start. And Amanda, I like how you said, just push yourself to look at that, healthmovesminds.org. Health Moves Minds is a great tool for teachers to use, whether you're a health teacher, a PE teacher, or, math, science, social studies. I think it could benefit everyone, just the skills there. So one of the things we wanted to touch on too is how can teachers of other subjects incorporate more activity into their lessons, even in remote learning? Do you have any tips that you could take away to teachers?
If you're not moving, your brain starts to go into sleep mode. This is what I say to my students, like if you're on your device and you don't do anything for a while, what happens to it? It goes into sleep mode. And that's what happens to us too. Like if we sit for too long, we kind of go into sleep mode. Our brain just isn't functioning at optimum. And so, getting up and moving, it just kind of wakes you up. But then, that's easy. Like classroom teachers there's so many resources out there. And I think that's one of the pluses of, one of the bright spots that's come out of this pandemic is we've had, when the PE community was at home in the spring, my goodness, the creators got to creating, and there's just so much great stuff out there. I actually put it into a Padlet, which was new learning for me. I had never used Padlet prior to all of this. I organized it into a Padlet for my colleagues by like literacy, different math concepts, because there's a lot of math, and I did it kind of by math skills so that it's very user friendly, where my colleagues who are overwhelmed can just, I need, and they can click on it. And so you can do a movement break that's even has an academic learning piece to it. But you can also, go the extra and do like Mike Kuzala with his active classrooms, actually kinesthetic learning. I forget what the stat is, but like if it takes, I don't know how many hundreds of repetitions to get new learning to stick, unless it's done through play, and then it's like 20. I
want to hand it off to Kyle for a second, Amanda. He's going to leave us in a few minutes. So I wanted to kind of hear any thoughts from him before he hops off.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I love incorporating the academics. Like just today, we did a warm up that they were doing math facts while they were doing some jumps and some hops, and we also like to videotape those so teachers and parents can see that. So we're advocating, and we're also sharing those resources so they can use those in the classroom and at home as well. So I think once you show the teachers that it can be done and that you are doing it, not only does it give them resources, but it shows that you care about their standards. And if you care about theirs, they're more likely to include academic or movement into their lessons, and especially if you show them how to do it. So I think we use Class Dojo, the app so every day I send videos to the parents and teachers so they can see exactly what we're doing. I like to be visible too. I take my class out to the courtyard sometimes, and like when we're doing some team building stuff, so everyone can see that we can do these things while we're moving. And it also advocates for physical education, right? They see all the amazing things, the teamwork, the cooperation going on. We were laying on our backs in the hallway, and we were moving a ball with our feet, and it was like a relay race, and people were cheering and cheering. And Everyone's like, whoa, look at that teamwork going on. Like, we could probably do that in class, right? So I think being visible, sharing resources, and making sure that we're showing teachers that we're incorporating yours. And guess who's going to come to early to PE next time? They know if you're working on their stuff, they're going to be on time or early, which means we get more time with the kids to build relationships and get them active and learning. So I think just connecting everything, the school, and making sure everyone is aware of what we're doing, but also we need to be aware of what they're doing so we can incorporate them into our classroom.
So, and those that aren't PE teachers, because this is a broad audience too. We have teachers who aren't health and PE teachers and some admin. Reach out. Your health and PE teacher is a wonderful resource within your building to help. Like, do you have any ideas? Are there things that I can get more activity with my students in class? Because I think one thing we've also learned in this pandemic is like kids cannot sit still. I think we knew that as teachers, but parents also realize like we can't get kids to sit still for these long periods of time. More movement, the better. And what Michelle mentioned about the cross-body connections and things like that.
I was literally like over here going like this, because even something like reaching for apples, I always use that, like just reach for some apples, like they crossing planes, or like in the Zoom, I tell them pass to the left, pass to the right, like just because you're doing crossing the plane. And so I actually felt, because we were sitting here, so I'm like, boop, boop. Okay, but keep going. But
no, I love that. But that's something simple that somebody could just do really quick to get them. You need those little breaks. We have one picture that always sticks out to me about how when kids are sitting, that brain activity is really low, but after they get moving, it's like everything, the juices are going, everything, it gets more active, and you're just priming them for more to absorb your content. I'm going to end with this last question. And then if there's anything anybody else may want to say, as school districts prepare for the 2021-2022 school year, what message would you like to share with the decision makers and health and PE teachers regarding the importance of physical education and physical activity and its impact on addressing, that's a big question, and its impact on addressing the needs of the whole child? I'm going to start with Sean.
That's definitely a big question. Unfortunately, we got to kind of skim them before we got started. But, it goes back to kind of how I started this talk, is looking at physical education through the lens of public health, that it supports not just students, but those students are soon going to become citizens and own their own leaders and community leaders. And it starts there. And we talked about whole child a couple times, in this space and during this time. And the CDC has a framework for the whole child. It's called the WISC model: whole school, whole community, whole child. And there's so many different parts to that, which include the social emotional climate, which we talked about, community involvement, family engagement, educator wellness. But at the top of it is health education and physical activity. So those things matter. And the CDC recognizes that in order to have successful students who want to come to school, students who want to be successful in the classroom, and students that exhibit great behavior and all this awesome social emotional and mindfulness, the social emotional well-being and mindfulness, that it takes those things, physical education, physical activity, getting moving around and doing it in a sequential way as they're learning to become better.
I would like to say to the decision makers for the upcoming school year that health and PE is a subject that deserves respect. It's not gym class. We teach in a gym, and like we said the other week, like my brother's name is Jim, but that's not what we teach. We teach health and physical education and, meet the needs of all of our children. So now more than ever, with our students sitting in front of a screen and looking at a screen for a lot of the times, they need to move, and adults need to move too. And they also need the coping skills and strategies to be able to deal with stress and manage their emotions and the situations they're going through. So if I was to send out a message to all other subject areas, I would say it's okay to allow your students to move in your class. Like, that's okay. It's okay to take a mindful minute where you're focusing on the present and just allow them, if they feel safe, to close their eyes and just breathe and be in the present, release anything negative and just focus on the positive. And I would say that for the teachers as well. And then for those who want to really take this to the next level, like go to your admin, get them on board, advocate for health and PE, and be a part of a team that's going to help educate others, because I feel like sometimes it's just because someone's not educated on it, and that's why they don't know. So we need to be the ones and the voice to educate so that we can help all the children that are out there across the country, not just in our classroom, but in throughout the school. So I feel like it needs to come from the top down, and I love that my district is doing that, and I would love to see that all over. And just to stress that movement and coping skills and SEL like leads to academic success. Like Sean was saying, higher attendance rates, better behavior, and just overall like more joy and more happiness in their lives. And at the end of the day, we want our kids to be happy, and we want them to be lifelong learners and have these movement skills and coping skills that they could utilize throughout their life.
If you were doing like NASCAR racing, and you didn't maintain the engine, you're just not going to get performance. And if you don't take care of your health, like kids are not going to be able to perform. So when we look at like the health standards and the PE standards and the social emotional learning from Castle, there's so much overlap amongst these things and what we're teaching and learning. And we're in the middle of a public health crisis, as Sean was saying. And one of the things that's become really visible and obvious is that this is not hitting everybody equitably. So if we're going to be serious about health equity, our students who are most impacted are the ones that everybody needs these skills to grow up and to be, but marginalized groups even more so, because if you don't know how to advocate for yourself and you don't know how to access reliable information, now you've got doctors who may there's equity issues in the medical field, and the products and services that you're looking for weren't made with you in mind. So it's just so important that all of our students learn this, but especially anybody that's in a marginalized group. When we're looking at our whole student body, you've got kids who you might have a kid that's going to be a neurosurgeon someday, or they're going to be a phenomenal architect, or they're going to be and then you've got your students who are have challenges, and you may have students who may go on to work in a sheltered workshop environment because their special needs, like that's what they're going to do. It doesn't matter who the child is and what they're going to end up doing when they're an adult. Everybody needs these skills, and this everybody doesn't need pre-calculus. Some of your students do, but everybody needs this. And no knock on pre-calculus. It just this is immediately relevant to everybody.
I agree. And that's one thing I think I will add before we kind of wrap it up. But the skills that are, in health and PE around our mental and emotional wellness, physical wellness, all of these things are what, like when we're adults, right? We're trying to learn, how can I manage my stress better? My nutrition, those sorts of things. How can I get more activity, right? Like the things that we kind of right now in the K-12 setting, we don't pay as much attention to are the things that, like, as we get into adulthood, right, we're more concerned with. If we paid more attention to some of these things, because you can't do the other things until these foundational needs, these foundational skills, I think, are met. And so I want to leave too saying that teacher self-care. So a lot of the times that the things that we're talking about also apply to teachers and taking care of themselves, especially with stress. You may find yourself teaching the content or having your students implement some of these skills that they actually could be really life-changing for you as well. I want to thank Sean, Michelle, Amanda, and Kyle for joining us, because one thing we've known during the pandemic is that time is valuable. We're stretched thin in all different directions. And so we appreciate their time. I appreciate anyone who's tuning in and listening, because your time is valuable. And so thank you for joining us for this edition of Teacher Talk. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining us.